Welcome. I'd like to call to order the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission for Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. Roll call, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Peterman.
Here.
Ms. McSwain is absent. Ms. Rogers Garner is also absent. Mr. Foster.
Here.
Ms. Jackson.
Here.
Allen.
Present.
And Mr. Hanson is absent as well.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes, he was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. You have an introduction you'd like to make, sir?
I do, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to introduce you all to our newest team member. And when I say new, I mean as of yesterday, which is Autumn Bailey. Autumn is our new Senior Business Development Specialist. She joined the team just yesterday, and we're very excited to have her on board. She brings a long list of experience in positions assisting small businesses, both in the Washington, D.C. area and Hampton Roads as well. So she'll be helping with that, our business retention and attraction efforts also. So welcome aboard. Autumn, I don't know if you have any remarks, anything you'd like to share.
Good morning to everyone. It's nice to meet all of you. I'm very excited to be part of Portsmouth. As we recently left Virginia Beach Economic Development, and I'm looking forward to working with the small businesses in Portsmouth and working with all of you. Thank you.
Is he an ad or is he a replacement for somebody?
Well, it's a replacement for a vacant position that we've had open for some time. So
Autumn Dale.
Thank you so much.
thank you all.
Welcome, Autumn. You have before you the minutes of the June 27th, 2023 meeting. We will need a motion and a second for approval of those minutes. I do have an amendment. Commissioners present, I'm listed as treasurer, or that should be Ms. McSwain, and Ms. McSwain is listed as chair, where she should be listed as treasurer.
Okay, we will make that modification. My apologies for that.
Can I make a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of minutes as amended.
With the amendment, we will call the roll. Mr. Peterman.
Yes.
Wayne is absent. Roger Garner is absent. Hanson is absent. Mr. Foster.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson
Yes.
and Ms. Allen.
Yeah,
The item is adopted by a vote of 4-0.
thank you. Next, we have our quarterly financial report by Ms. Pope. Good morning, Ms. Pope. Good morning.
For the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023, we had $920,000 in cash in the bank. We ended with 1.2 million in grants receivable, and those are two grants, and they're both Port Host community grants. We still had our two Burton's Point properties at $332,000. The liability for the 1.2 is the same as the receivable, which when we get those, we'll pay those out. We end the year with around 49,000 in accounts payables. Those are things we paid, the check had not been cut yet, so they are accounted for in the income statement. So that gave us a total liability of 1.5 million, leaving our net position at 1.3, just $139 different from what we ended with last year. Okay. On to those are the two grants. If they're saying 1.27. The income statement for the period ending 6/30/23, we brought in 5,000 worth of IBR fees. Total expenses for the year was only 20,000. Well, a little bit up compared to last year, it's still kind of small. We had interest income earned on cash at 15,000. And again, the end of the year net position was $1,003,255. And here is our year-to-date budget report, which shows what we budgeted versus what we actually brought in or spent.
Are there any questions in regards to the financial report?
I have one.
Ms. Peterman?
I touched on it last meeting about now that the port is now a windmill, production facility. Is our revenues going to change?
Well, I can speak to the activity that's occurring now, and answer your question. In addition to that, describe what is proposed for the future. So the Portsmouth Marine Terminal facility, which you're referring to, is a state-owned property, so that is exempt from local real estate taxes. There are improvements that are underway to the port terminal itself. Those would continue to be, my understanding, tax exempt improvements because they are the port facility itself. What we are envisioning in the future is the potential for private development. What has been announced to date is Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy has a plan for a blade finishing facility. Those real estate improvements that Siemens would be undertaking, my understanding would be taxable improvements, which would be the building, the facility they would construct. And then, of course, any personal property, machinery, and tools would also be revenue generating to the city. But that would be the next step with the redevelopment plan for 19. Ms. Jane Coltec with the city assessor is here. He has specific questions about how the property is taxed, but that is my understanding of how that will work and the revenues that would be generated to the city.
For the answer, it'll be an increase in income or a decrease in income or about the same? Do we know?
It will probably be an increase. And I say probably because we really don't have all the details yet. So it's difficult to say. And it's also thought at this point in time that with them changing the way that the facility is going to operate and become production, that there's going to be a lot of offshoot businesses that are going to be a result of this, which of course would be tax generating businesses.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The only question that I have is where it comes to the line for business development. The revised budget is 9,000. Year-to-date actual is $10,319.98, which is a difference of $1,320. Can I get a report back on what that is?
Yes.
Absolutely, we could have it for you at your next meeting. If not beforehand, we can let you know if you're able.
Thank you. Any other questions in regards to the financial report?
I make a motion that we approve the financial report as written.
We don't have to
No, we don't?
vote on it.
Okay.
No, thank you. Okay, we have our Port of Virginia update. Morning, Mr. Cross.
Madam Chair, thank y'all for allowing me some of your time this morning. So I'll just do a quick infrastructure update. Portsmouth Marine Terminal, I want to say the Dominion piece of that project is nearing about 40% complete. Again, that will be the staging, load in, load out for the Coastal Virginia offshore wind farm, located about 27 miles off of Virginia Beach. Again, the first components are anticipated to arrive in October, and these are, I can't even put a weight limit on it. It's thousands of tons, something to the point where you cannot transport it over road. But again, those first components for the 176 turbines will be arriving in October. Construction at NIT North began last month in July. That project is sort of the next big terminal optimization project that will add approximately 20% more capacity port-wide. It'll take the same technology that's in place at Virginia International Gateway that was then implemented at NIT South, came online in 2020. This particular project will be done likely in two phases. First phase being done in 2025. Second phase anticipated to be complete in 2027. In addition to that, Central Rail Yard project, one of the unique advantages Virginia has, is we've got great rail connection throughout half the country. We have 2/3 of the US population east of the Mississippi. You ship through Virginia, we can get your goods to half of the country, pretty efficient route. And because of that, the Central Rail Yard project will get our rail list to just over 1 million annually. Currently, we ship the highest percentage of goods by rail along the East Coast at approximately 34%. And then finally, I'll offer, Chris may have mentioned this in a prior meeting, but the World Bank, S&P Global does an annual container port performance index review each year, compares ports all across the world. They put Virginia as the #2 most efficient, most modern, reliable port in North America. I think it was 52nd in the world, still room for improvement, but that's 2 years in a row, top 2 most efficient port in North America. So something to hang your hat on a bit, but I'll close there and happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions in regard to the port? Hearing none, thank you so much. Next on our agenda, Starbase Victory Grants. Mr. Donahue?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Included in your package, which was sent out last Friday, was a copy of a formal grant request from Starbase Victory to support the development of their new curriculum in the city of Portsmouth. We have previously had this discussion regarding support for the STEM programs offered by Starbase. The PPIC in its FY24 budget did appropriate $50,000 for grant funding to Starbase. And following their presentation a couple months back, they have submitted a formal request for funding in the amount of $50,000 equal to the appropriated amount. In order to move forward, I would like to ask for a vote on this matter to put it to record, and certainly happy to discuss it in further detail if there are any questions or follow-up conversations that need to be had. But you do have the request before you for consideration.
And I did, along with Councilman Hugo, attended the Starbase Partners Breakfast a couple of weeks ago and had the opportunity to see MedBase in progress, which is really impressive. Those who know healthcare is a growing business where we're going to need more people. I work in healthcare. So to see that addition to Starbase Victory really warmed my heart. I'm in full support of giving them the grant, which we set aside for them in the first place. Did you want to share anything, Councilman Hugel?
Man, you said it all.
So with that being said, I need a motion and a second for the record to give Starbase Victory the request of $50,000 grant for their programming.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterman,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
and Ms. Al.
Yes,
Chair, the item is adopted by a vote of 4-0.
thank you. Next on our agenda, the Hampton Roads Workforce Council briefing. Mr. Donahue?
Yes, we have with us today representatives from the Hampton Roads Workforce Council who will be providing a briefing and presentation on some of their efforts and initiatives underway, specifically, I believe, in the maritime and industrial sectors. We have here this morning Mr. Whitney Lester. He is the Senior Director of Talent Development with the Workforce Council, and Jackie Rondow with the council, who is their Employer Engagement Manager. And Whitney and Jackie, I'll ask you to come forward. You're free to stand, and we also have some seats here at the table if you'd like to have a seat.
Thanks, Brian. I just assumed sort of.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Thank you for having us here today. Truly, it's really good for us to share what we're doing at the Workforce Council. It's nice to have a number of allies here, particularly an old colleague in Dallas. So, thank you very much for having us. For those that aren't familiar with the New Hampshire Workforce Council, we are about to hit our 50th anniversary of being around next year. And, what we are, depends on who you ask. We, have been called a special unit of local government. We've been called a regional independent authority, but whatever we are, we're a semi-governmental agency who gets, traditionally, for the better part of 5 decades, has gotten government funding to put towards, working with local business, working with training and education providers, and working with local job seekers to put it all together. You see us as the hub. This is one of our newer graphics, which uses the turbine graphic there, but that's really where we see ourselves and what we have done, historically. And, some of you have gotten to know our team through a lot of the services that we've been providing for such a long time. We want to talk a little bit about what we've got going on in new realms. As you can see from this slide, we say what our economic development priorities. The truth is, we are here to serve the entire Hampton Roads, 15 cities and counties, which also seems to be growing because we're drawing good talent from other places that extend beyond those perimeters. But we do concentrate on some industries where we've got strong partnerships, and those include advanced manufacturing, shipbuilding, ship repair, offshore wind is burgeoning, distribution and logistics, port especially, information technology, a growing sector that we're going to concentrate on more and more, healthcare and bioscience, really want to launch into this very soon, food and beverage processing, business and shared services. So we have a number of programs. We try and brand this in a way that you know that they're all Hampton Roads Workforce Council, but at times we feel like maybe that we don't do the best job we possibly could, so that people who go to our Virginia Career Work Centers, or people who drive by them don't necessarily know that that's the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. We've got 2 Veterans Employment Centers, one at Military Circle and one at City Center, Oyster Point, and Newport News. That's there too. Next Gen is our program working with youth of all ages, and Campus 757 is a new program I'm going to talk about in just a second. So my role at the Workforce Council, I was a board member for a number of years, and I came on board in 2019 because under our President CEO Sean Avery, Sean has done a lot of good things for the council. One of the things he's done that's most important is, like I said, we've traditionally gotten these streams of funding to put into training programs to really make those connections between job seekers and the businesses, open jobs. But that he wanted to do more, and with those limitations and that regimented structure, and he knew that with some flexibility, with some latitude, we could grow exponentially and really have the freedom to do what the region needs most. So that's the talent division, among a couple other divisions. We now have a 501c3 Hampton Roads Workforce Foundation attached to us. We've been getting grants left, right, and center that have taken when I was on the board, I think we had about a $6 or $7 million annual budget. We're now between 30 and 40 million and growing. And we'll talk a little bit about where that has come from. It's exactly that. The talent challenge, I usually walk into rooms and say, who here's got some problem filling the open positions at their company? And rarely do people say, I don't know what you're talking about. So I came on board in September of 2019, and we all know what happened that following spring, which exacerbated the problem tenfold. And there was a quotient of the labor force that simply did not return after the pandemic. And it's become that much harder to find good talent. So what we do, and I know this might be a little bit hard for you to see, happy to make these available to anybody at any time. But I used to have them as pillars of talent, but really I'm like, it's really more of an engine. These are cogs, and it's attraction, retention, and development. Talent development is what we've done for the better part of 5 decades. And that is to take the base of talent that's here and put our training programs into place, put on the job training to pay for that, to pay for incumbent worker training, to do some soft skills training. Moreover, we say workplace readiness is of the utmost importance, and where sometimes we are lacking as a region. A lot of internships, work-based learning, experiential learning, whatever we want to call it. It's that getting people before they come to work for you, getting them in internships. We're just rounding out our summer internship programs, and it's really a strong segue and gateway towards your emerging workforce, your next great employees. That's all what we've been doing in development, but really to couple that with attraction and retention programs. Retention was where we began in talent when I came on, which was to say too many people leave the area for reasons that we don't think, reasons we think we can combat. Veterans, so many transitioning service members go back from whence they came or go to some other opportunity, but there's a core who are entrenched in this community. Really need to keep them here, and that includes military spouses, transitioning for service members, veterans, retired and not. We, between our two veterans centers and a number of programs there, we're really trying to keep such good talent in the region. College student retention through Campus 757, which is a program we'll talk about in just a second. Too many college students, they come here, they're either from here or they come here, they go to college, and then they vault to DC, New York, other places. They say the jobs aren't here, and they are, they just need some awareness, some connectivity. So we've got a whole program that does exactly that. Campus 757. There's a summer program for interns, and I'm sorry I'm talking so fast. I get excited and there's lots to talk about, but please feel free to stop me anytime with questions. Summer 757 is a program for interns, college interns in this, to get skills enhancement, to get networking opportunities. They really to get imbued with what a lot of people, while they're here in college, they don't fall in love with the region because they never really explored all the great assets this region has. And then that connectivity to internships, to job opportunities is really where we want to tie them down. This is a very busy slide, but as we've done more work into maritime, a couple of years ago, we applied for a grant from the state funding mechanism called Go Virginia. And Go Virginia gave us $663,000. It was a 2-to-1 match, so we had about $1 million to launch into maritime, our single largest economic driver. And our first hire was Jackie Rondeau, who was an internal hire. She had been with us in business services. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but Jackie's going to get into that a bit further. But really, what the picture this one paints is that we're sort of, it's still that hub, but it's a little more complicated hub where we've got economic inputs. We've got the business input from the Navy itself, from shipbuilding and ship repair. We take that and we take the programs that we've got, we created new programs, and our partners are as vast and wide as possible. It's by design. We don't want to do anything in a silo. We really do want to be a part of a movement where from outside the region, they say they got their act together, and we're starting to hear that as well. So in talent pipeline management, we employ a methodology that we have borrowed from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Talent Pipeline Management Academy. And it's pretty simple. There's some more steps than I'll go into, and Jackie will talk a little bit about that. But the idea is, why don't we listen to demand first? Instead of throwing a bunch of money into training programs and doing workforce development, supply first. Understand the demand signal very, very clearly before you go headlong into it. And that's where we've begun. And that's why Jackie is really the key cog in this, where we identified the industry cluster as being maritime. We've got our full-time dedicated team. We really believe that talent is something that everyone's interested in. And we saw a number of committees, projects, side lights, and full-time dedicated people whose job it is every day to do talent is really where this needle has started to move. We are putting the TPM work into action, continuously try and tie more of these bows together and create a pipeline. We've been really extensively maritime for a couple of years now, but with the work that we're getting, with some of the claim we're getting a lot of other industries knocking at the door saying, hey, what about us? Very fair. We're trying to identify the resources to go into these other industries. Healthcare, I mean, everyone knows what impact the pandemic had on the state of healthcare as a business unit. We got and when we're trying to put resources together, put another team, just like Jackie's team together in healthcare. We got a small grant to do an assessment of where we are with information technology, data analytics, cybersecurity, modeling and simulation, et cetera. That's happening. Advanced manufacturing, we've really got to pay more attention over there. Jackie's working directly with the port on distribution logistics. You saw some of that. We are beholden to everyone. We're going to try and pivot to that. I'm going to hand this over to Jackie a little bit to talk a little bit more about what it is we actually do in this.
Thank you, Whitney. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jackie, and as Whitney said, I have been with the council for a while. Before I accepted this position in 2021, I I was with the Virginia Employment Commission starting in 2008 during the entire recession. And then I moved over from there to the Workforce Council in 2011. Of course, it was Opportunity Inc. at the time. So I've been with the council since 2011, and when this opportunity came up, I was interested because it gave me the ability to focus on an industry, which, doing business services, I could not focus on any one industry. It was all industries throughout the entire region. And maritime, I think, is the most important region or most important industry in our local area here. So it needs the attention. Talent pipeline management, as Whitney said, is the U.S. Chamber's program that is being used all over the country. Some states, in fact, are using it on a statewide basis. I envy those states because that means if the state has adopted it on a statewide basis, then all of their community college system, everybody basically that works for the state and touches workforce development is trained to use talent pipeline management and is using this system. So Connecticut is using it statewide. Kentucky was, I think, the first state that started using it statewide. But what it is it takes the concept of talent pipeline management and looks at it differently than what we've done in the past. I've been in workforce development for a long time, and the way that it's normally addressed is we focus on supply. If there is a need for skills in an area, or if there's a need for workers in an area, we train more people. We think more people must need to be trained. If we don't have enough welders, we need more welding programs, and we need more people to take welding programs. That's what we've always done in workforce development, and I don't think it has been as successful as it could be. I don't think it has solved all of the problems. If it had solved all of the problems, Whitney and I would not have a job, I don't think. Because there would be no problems. Everybody would just go into training and they get jobs and everybody lives happily ever after. So what this system does is it says we need to turn this around. Instead of focusing on supply, we need to focus on demand. So instead of saying, well, I hear that businesses need welders, we need to dig deep into that. What exactly does that mean? What kind of welders? What training do they need? What credentials do they need? How much experience do they need? And what do you not need? What is working well in training programs and what is not working well in other training programs? So we start with demand. And in order to do that, in late 2021, we got together a group of maritime employers here in the area that I have been working with for a while to talk about their issues and their jobs and their demand and what they see are the problems. I wanted to start them out with one critical job or maybe two, but they insisted on 6, that there were 6 critical jobs, and it couldn't be any less than that. This system, this program is completely employer driven. It's data driven and it's employer driven. So I don't make the decisions, they do. So we focused on 6 critical jobs. So I have gotten a really good demand signal on those 6 critical jobs, and they are skilled trades jobs. And we are now working on, so we've organized, we've done demand planning, we've communicated competency and credential requirements for those jobs. And we have, we are kind of in the middle of analyzing talent flows, because in order to analyze talent flows, we need to know exactly what's coming out of the training schools. And that includes community colleges, that includes proprietary schools, that includes technical high schools, CTEs, everybody who does any kind of training for maritime. We need the kind of demand signal that we have from employers. We need that level of data from training providers, and we are working on that now. We have somebody in fact, who joined us from industry, who came over from the maritime industry, and was so impressed by this and wanted so much to be a part of the solution that is now working for us and is working with the training providers to get all of that data, so that we can finish analyzing talent flows. For that, we need the data from the employers on where did their people come from? Where did they go to school? Where did they work before? How did we find them? And then we also need the data from the training providers. How much capacity do you have in this program every year? How many people enroll in the program every year? How many people complete? And then, perhaps most importantly, what happens to those people when they complete those programs? Do they actually go to work in the industry? Do they stay here but go to work in another industry, or do they leave the area? All of those things we need to know in order to build talent supply chain. Oops, I went backwards. So this is an example of data that we gathered on one particular trade. So we looked here to see, you can see, well, I'm pretty sure you can't read it from there, but those are all the possible qualifications and credentials that we asked the employers about. Is this required for that particular position, for that level and that position? And we can see, you know, how many are requiring it, how many would like it, and how many don't need it at all for each credential.
So what's the color code?
So the blue is preferred. It is preferred for that position. The orange is required for that position, and the gray is neither. So you can look and take like the orange and blue together and say that particular credential is highly desirable for that position. It's either required or preferred. Or, I mean, you can also see SubSafe, for example, is a pretty even split between it's desirable to have and no, we don't need this at all. But that leads me to real quickly talking about who's in the Maritime Collaborative that I initially started in late 2021. And I wrote some names down here because I never remember to list all of them. And I don't want to leave anybody out. This isn't all, it's most of them. Names that you would recognize. Fairlead was one of our founding members, actually. Prism Maritime in Chesapeake, Oceaneering in Chesapeake, Lion Shipyard, QED Systems, Auxiliary Systems, Kiwanis Shipyard, Delphinus, Mission Technologies, of course, Newport News Shipbuilding, and most recently, I'm very proud of this, it took me so long, Norfolk Naval Shipyard is now part of the collaborative, and they're attending their second meeting tomorrow. And they've already been producing data. They're an important part of the harbor. We can't leave them out. You know, Newport News Shipbuilding and Norfolk Naval are the two biggest parts of the workforce, and we need both of them in there to see what's going on. And then the next thing is, do you want me to talk about this before?
I can talk about it, go on.
Okay, Whitney is going to talk a little bit about the With Good Jobs Challenge grant that we got and have been working on and are about to seriously kick off with, and also about some maybe funding that's relevant to this. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Jackie. Just to wrap it up to sort of paint the picture of us telling the story of what we have done. We put our own money in there to bring me on board and to start to think about what we were gonna do. We determined to go into the maritime industry. We wrote a grant proposal. We got $663,000 seed money really to bring in some full-time talent. Based on that, we wrote a grant proposal to the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration, EDA, part of President Biden's Good Jobs Challenge, and we were awarded $11 million to take this regional workforce training system that we were building and pump it up. We're hiring about 17 recruiters. We are expanding our reach really up over to the Eastern Shore, and this is just where we're drawing our talent from. If we can train someone in Elizabeth City, many of them are coming up to the various yards around here. The Eastern Shore has long wanted to be a player and say, what can we do to pump some life into this industry? So, again, 11,000 commitments to hire, the largest being Newport News Shipbuilding. But it really has put us on the map where a lot of people sit up and take notice. The governor's cabinet, Secretary of Labor came down and said, what we're doing in talent development, the rest of the state needs to get on board with. That's why part of one of the latest developments this year was a new workforce development agency in Richmond. And we continue to grow from here. We're not resting on this laurel. We're continuing to bolster this. We want the maritime industry to, we're talking about national defense, national security. It's really important in shipbuilding, ship repair. And then the rest of the ecosystem benefits from us being bolstered. Finally, the U.S. Navy's they took notice as well and said, seems like you got a good program there. What if we funded some workforce development type activities? So we're seeing mostly capacity building. Mostly we see New Horizons Regional Education Center on the Peninsula get additional welding booths. Virginia Beach City Schools getting additional welding booths. We get maritime training programs being stood up. There was one in the Franklin or Suffolk, but it's Camp Community College there. This is where some monies are going, and we're talking to the tune of initial investment of $29 million. And beyond that, we're sort of at the helm where we can take a look at the region and advise them on where we need it. And so we want to continue to working with every locality and see where we stand and see where we can be throughout the region, every training program to see what more we can do, new initiatives. One of the initiatives that this is helping bolster is GoTech, which is a program for middle schoolers to get interested in robotics, mechatronics, the type of things that lead to manufacturing industry jobs into the future and careers, putting some money that way. Where we see well-formed, well-founded, good programs happening that will help not just these particular jobs, not just these particular companies, really the entire region, because a lot of these have crossover into advanced manufacturing and other industries. It's just more of an infusion and it's more good things happening. So we are excited for where we stand now. And this is still the same old Hampton Roads Workforce Council, but it's sort of a new variety of it. And we hope you hear more about it. We hope this brings more, it fills much more of the void that we've got in some of these open jobs. And anyway, I think I've probably talked enough about it. I could talk your ears off on it. But thank you for giving us the time. I'm sure we went over a little bit. But what questions do you all have for what Jackie and I have talked about?
Good morning. Does any of our members have questions?
I guess your measures of performance of how you're doing, that last slide you had, is that what you're patting yourself on the back for?
This is what we said we were going to do in the Good Jobs Challenge. This is what we told EDA. If you pump this money in and we're able to bring more people into our system, this is what it will be. The commitments to hire, that was part of the application process, and frankly, Newport News Shipbuilding said we could hire 10,000 people over the next 3 to 5 years. Where our job is to ensure that these get trained, and so we've brought on a bunch of staff on our side to create a very intelligent system wherein it's really case management. Everyone that we encounter, we look at the career pathway, their trajectory. We're either funneling them directly into industry because they're ready to go, or we're funneling them into training that we're helping pay for. And so that's really our role, is to get them on that track, get them plugged in with the various industry partners. So that will be the metrics that we're keeping track of that in a manner that we can go back and say, we said we're going to do this, we did this.
And if you had in your dreams, what would that look like? What's your goal?
This
is your goal?
I wouldn't say it's aspirational, but that's our goal. And that's what, as the biggest employer of need in this region is Newport News Shipbuilding, because as opposed to some of the yards that you see along the waterway here, who are in ship repair and have contracts that run, every 3 to 6 months, they're looking at opportunities coming and going. Newport News Shipbuilding knows exactly what they need to do over the next X number of years. And as they read the tea leaves, they're a little concerned that they don't have enough coming in through the door. I think I think we're seeing a generational shift and we want to get it back where people are deviating from the maritime industry and we want to say, these are good jobs, these are good sustainable jobs. So this would be great. As we hit our marks, this is what we should be doing because that starts solving the problems of all the yards in the region. And our role in that is to ensure people get the right training, get the right placement in jobs.
Well, how about the exodus of people leaving the area? Have you had any metrics on that?
Yes, we do. We've got an outward migration and we have for a number of years. And that's something that Virginia has suffered, but Hampton Roads has suffered. And so that's why our talent retention programs are so important. We've got to convince people that they don't need to leave here to get a good job, a good career. It speaks to a larger discussion, and I wish we had time for all these things today, but we've even got a pinky toe looking at housing affordability because people can't live near where they're going to work. They won't stay here, or they'll do something different. Childcare is an issue, transportation is always an issue. So we're trying to look at this holistically to say, are we pumping all this money into this and ignoring this, this, and this? It's not really we're never gonna be at the head of those tables because we're workforce, but we do have something to say, and we do believe it draws back to talent and all the people who say, I can't find the people to come to work for me anymore.
I do want to say, just to be clear, this grant is in addition to the thousands of people that we work with every year. This is not.
Right.
I mean, we have, the Virginia Career Work Center see thousands of people a year and put hundreds of people through training in all, possible industries and all possible fields. This is just for this grant, just for expanded maritime, which does include offshore wind, does include the port, does include the HRBT expansion.
Any further questions?
Madam Chair, if I can ask just a question. Wendy, what can we do as Portsmouth or really any locality in Hampton Roads to support this effort? And really all of the workforce council's efforts. What one or two things can we do locally to support your work? And
Great question. Great question. I think, it's on us to make you aware of all that's going on first and foremost. So having us come talk to you, and we're not the only branch of the workforce council, but really understanding what it is we're trying to do and understand that we're working with your local school system and making sure that we're plugged in there, which we are. But boy, some things sometimes happen a little bit siloed where we'll hear about a new program or a new initiative that is, I'm not gonna say duplicative or, boy, we should have worked together on this. And that's just making sure that when there's a new anything that the city wants to do that's workforce related at all, that you ping us and just say, are you guys tracking this? Because we would be smart to partner. And the truth is that happens a lot. We are in pretty good shape there. I do think it's on us a little bit again, as we're engaged with the Navy and looking at new projects to look at where you all are as a school system or where you all are with any sort of training programs in Portsmouth and understand the landscape of it and understand what we can do with a new project. Maybe what does a new project look like? Because then we run that up the flagpole and see if it gets some traction there. Because I think that's good for everybody, good for all of us. Other than that, Jackie, what would you say?
I would love to have, somebody from our team attend your meetings at least occasionally. To have a
We have an
better
open door,
feel.
so we welcome you. We welcome your presence. Yeah, whenever you're able to join us. And I do know you work closely with our workforce development staff, and we've had a very strong partnership there. But this is a big initiative for the region.
Mhm.
And we have some serious federal dollars behind us, so we want to help make you successful because it benefits everybody. And I know Nala, I think, had some questions earlier.
So we, at Portsmouth, we do, have one of your outreach specialists for Portsmouth here twice a week, to support the initiative, and then hopefully collaborate with the, enrollment piece of training with the career developers. So that's in the works right now. So we see the staff and assisting them with networking in the community and telling them who to speak to and where to go. So we're developing that and hopefully, getting those numbers right.
That's extremely helpful for us, just that piece of it. With this grant, we were able to hire this number of recruiters. I hear it bounced around between 15, 17, 18. and other entities, other resources have chipped in, another one here, another there. And it's not just geographically, we've got a couple that are concentrated on a veterans piece. We've got a couple that are concentrating on transitioning service members, or at least one or two. But a lot of it is, we want to make sure we've got someone entrenched in Portsmouth that keeping them informed the best that you all can is really important, because they'll do their job that much better and be that much more plugged in. If you're like, hey, if you haven't talked to these folks, please go talk to these folks. This is a great resource here. So those are just, and that's just the recruiter piece. There's so much more. There's one of our colleagues named Amanda Slauson, who used to be on our team and slid over and is now soon enrolled for this entire grant. It is voluminous. It is massive, and it covers years. And there's a lot of, you can imagine with a grant this size, there's a lot of checking boxes to do to make sure we stay in compliance and all that. We're there and we're doing a good job, but we're really, as Jackie said, we're really at the forefront of this. We got the award notice late last year, and now we're really sliding into implementation. So I also don't want to sell short some of these Navy monies that are gonna. I'm wary of speaking too confidently in it, because it's just starting to come in, but there's an interest there, making sure that the workforce of tomorrow gets taken care of for this shipbuilding and ship repair industry. And they're not just concentrated, this is the Navy's submarine industrial base, not just concentrated on that submarine industrial base. They realize that the cliche is true, the rising tide floats all boats, and that's what we're talking about. So we're looking at workforce for the area and sort of related industries, and I really think it's been a good infusion. And this is what economic development really looks like, right? You take local money, that begat state money, which is begat federal money, and it's seemingly a really good thing moving forward. So
If I can add one thing, what is different about this grant in my 12 years with the Workforce Council, we've gotten a lot of grants. We get grants all the time, but we get grants to train people and get them jobs. We get some grants for employers. This grant is not to train 950 people and put them to work. This grant is to go further than that and develop a regional workforce training system for the maritime industry. So that means that for a change, everybody needs to be on the same page. And that, I think, is what we've been lacking in the region, is we've been lacking coordination. Everybody doesn't know about all the training opportunities that are out there. They don't know what's offered at what training provider. Businesses don't know, job seekers don't know, businesses don't know. We don't know which of these training programs are optimal and which are not. So it's getting everybody on the same page, working towards the same goal.
that's right. And ultimately, using the resources we have, if someone's, we're compiling something fairly evaluated for the training system in this region, and where it's lacking a little bit, we can help pump resources in there.
Right.
And bring them up to the gold star standard that some of them have. And that's really all we want to do. We still want to see ourselves, we're not training anybody ourselves. We just want to be this convener and put it all together. And it seems to be flowing naturally. Jackie's right. I remember hearing from both Richmond and Washington 3 years ago, you all do not have your act together in Hampton Roads. I'm getting requests here, and they look exactly the same, and you're definitely not working together. And now we're hearing differently. Now we're like, oh, it's nice. You guys are building something together. So that makes us pretty happy that we're at least moving in the right direction to get some validation from when people, the biggest validation we can get is when someone writes a big check to us and says, this looks like what you're supposed to be doing. So we will keep you posted with progress that we make. Please, I'm sorry we took up so much of your time, but we do get excited by this. This is our everyday, and we think it's fairly important for what we have going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Mr. Donahue, an update on 3920 and 3930 Burton Point Road.
Thank you, Chair. We wanted to get back before you with some of the planning activities that have been underway to allow for you to view some of the conceptual planning work that's been performed. So a few months back, the commission directed staff to obtain some conceptual site layouts for the property on Burton's Point Road to aid in our marketing efforts. And we have done that. We retained Kimley Horn engineering firm, and I have two different layouts to show you today. We've included these at the table, and you can, of course, see it on the screen. If we can look at the first slide, which identifies impacted areas in the property, which are wetlands. You can see there in the green. 3930 does have some wetlands present on the property. We're currently in the process of getting a verification of these wetlands through the Army Corps of Engineer. That was last done in 2017, so we've also been in the process of updating that. But you can see the property is impacted with some wetland areas. Your next slide.
And the light green one is different from the dark blue one, the other one? They're both wetlands?
They are both wetlands. I would be, somewhat uncertain of the difference in the two, in terms of, why they're different shades, but I could certainly look into that.
Okay.
Your next slide has taken both properties and looked at each as a combined unit and as determined what could be potential layout for a single user if we were to combine both 3920 and 3930, essentially allowing for two industrial buildings of approximately 76,000 square feet. 153,000 square feet in total for industrial warehouse distribution space. So you can see here, this can accommodate with some impacts to the wetlands area, fairly significant capital improvements and facilities. So that is looking at both properties in combination one another. Your next layout looks at each property independently. If we were to have separate users locate, so we have a 31,000 square foot building that could be accommodated at 3920, and looking at 3930, again, a 77,000 square foot warehouse structure. These will be very, very helpful in marketing this property to the industrial development community. I think it's important to note the size of the facilities that can be accommodated, which sometimes is questioned as it relates to other on-site improvements that are required, such as stormwater retention and parking facilities, et cetera. So this does a really good job of identifying those requirements and then the land area that is available for development. So wanted to share these with you. Certainly answer any questions of like getting feedback you may have. I have also shared these with Harvey Lindsay, our commercial real estate broker, for their input prior to finalizing these so we can then include them with the market.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just have one, I have some wetlands on my property that I couldn't put a pool in. I couldn't do anything with the city. There was no mitigation that I could possibly do to develop that part of the property. Other than I'm not even allowed to cut the grass there. So I guess you need to answer the question as to what the impact of those wetlands are on that property.
So, right, you can see on both 3938 for both layouts, there would be impacted areas. So essentially the way that would work, there would need to be some mitigation of those areas that were impacted. My understanding, these are upland wetlands. They're not tidal in any way. I'm not sure of your unique situation, but there is the ability to, from a development standpoint, impact those areas. There are some things that would have to be done to mitigate that. In some circumstances, there's the ability to purchase into a wetlands bank to offset that impact, typically within the locality or the region. And that's something that a developer would have to look at, which could in turn require some sort of adjustments to the.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. We'll move into our Norfolk Naval Shipyard Southgate Annex update. Donahue?
Thank you, Chair. At your June meeting, we had some conversation about, discussions that had been underway for a number of years with, Norfolk Naval Shipyard in regards to the Southgate Annex that you see here on the screen. The area in red is the area that has been, looked at for some period of time, by the shipyard, as it is, considered to be, somewhat of surplus, real estate. There are activities that are carried out there, and they have been assessed over the years, really in an effort to determine the potential use of the property for economic development purposes. Overall, it's about 16 acres that's highlighted there. Since your June meeting, we did receive from the shipyard a area that has been identified for potential immediate availability, or soon to be immediate availability. If we could advance to the next slide. It is a area just along the Elizabeth River. And we have walked this recently, I think you recall, Chair and Vice Chair. The area identified with the red line there is what could be available without impact to the shipyard's operations. One thing they have taken into account and consideration is parking requirements for the carrier fleet when it is at the yard. This area does serve as a overflow area for parking for the sailors. And this has taken that into account. It's about a 3.5 acre area along the waterfront that could be made available. The piers that are identified within the boundaries, there are two. Their condition is such that they're really not in a usable state. I believe they are acceptable for tying up or mooring barges and vessels, but they are not able to accommodate significant loads. So they're really not in a usable state for doing any load out or anything of that sort. So this is the area that has been identified. I believe as a next step, we would need to look at potential uses for this property. If the PPIC had an interest in pursuing the availability of this land, and would probably need to identify potential users and what could be done on this property from an industrial standpoint.
As someone who was able to walk it, I would strongly suggest that there's an opportunity for the rest of the commissioners to go out and see it. So as they are contemplating their decision making, that they actually see the property itself.
We can certainly arrange for another tour and site visit to walk the property now that we know the area where the shipyard feels could be made available.
Are you in agreement with that, Vice Chair?
Yes, I think the other thing that, we need to think about is that, this may be a two-step, effort where, what's available now and what's available in the future, could be two different things. And, maybe this just becomes a laydown area now and, something for temporary use. But then, when the shipyard figures out where they want to be when they grow up, then we might take a look at the rest of the property. So I think it would be very advantageous for us to do what you said, is to take a tour. And I think Commissioner Hugel was there too. So you have any comments?
Yeah, so tying this into the Burton's Point Road brief, there was some discussion about a horse trade where we make the property at Burton's Point Road available for parking, and that may allow them to expand the red line to the left where the cars are parked there. Have we kind of looked at or had further discussions with them about a swap that would give us more land at Southgate in exchange for giving them parking at Burns Point Road?
No, to answer your question, we have not had the follow-up conversation with them, and I think that would have to come after this meeting based on the direction from the board. that would be one thing we want to look at just in terms of, if we were to make a swap, what the overall benefit would be to the city. I think that's where right now we really need to identify, potential use of this property. This property, not the overall Southgate, and who those users could be. This is a fairly limited amount of land, which won't facilitate much from an economic development standpoint. If it were to be a larger area that could be made available based on a swap, we would need to understand exactly what that would be. The layouts that we had, I think, were helpful to understand, what our property can accommodate from an economic development standpoint, and then we could do a comparison between the two. To determine, what would be the highest and best use.
And the other thing, that's deep water there. It's not mud flats, so it's something that boats and ships can come in there. So it's one of those things that makes it increase in value, I think.
And is there, once the trash facility is gone in the near future, I wonder if there's any chance that red line then would switch over some with the parking being able to move over to, where that
Elevator is.
Yeah. So just thinking for the future of that site to be able to grow with everything.
And that's been part of the conversation that, that property where Wheelabrator is located, the facility itself is maybe owned. So what will come of that? So closure, could that be the new parking area? There's been talk about the parking structure and how that would be funded through the Navy's budget. So there's a lot of moving parts here that are all incorporated within the shipyard infrastructure optimization program, the SIOP program. So there's a lot of work being done from a planning standpoint on the shipyard's side of things. And I think as that develops further out, we'll have a better understanding of our opportunities as well. But this could all change very quickly based on, their plans and funding availability. But what we will work to do, is coordinate another site visit now that we know an area that's been identified. We'll work to identify from a zoning standpoint and need what types of uses could occur here. I think, things such as, storage and staging of materials for industry, fabrication of ship components could occur here, storage of materials to support the maritime industry. Those are all things that I think we would look at, and then work to identify potential end users.
Yeah, that would be something you would take on as the economic development.
Yes.
It's an action item.
And I have some thoughts and ideas on that we'll begin to work through. Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I know on our agenda, we're gonna talk about the boat tour.
Yes.
Seems like we wanna make sure the boat tour goes far enough up the river to see this from the water.
We will be going by this site. We'll likely maybe drop anchor for a while to have a conversation. But we will definitely pass by Southgate.
Okay. Items submitted by commissioners. I did bring up that financial question that you'll get back to us on.
Yes, on the business development line item, we're going to look at the overage there on the budget. Yes, sure.
Any other items submitted by commissioners? Hearing none, report back supporting the port and industrial sites tour.
Yes, we will be taking a tour of the waterfront. We have selected a date of Tuesday, September 26th. That is the PPIC's regular meeting date. So we have reserved a vessel, the Mariner 4. Mr. Hanson is not here this morning, but he was instrumental in helping identify a vessel that could accommodate the board. So we have reserved that. It will depart on Tuesday, the 26th at 9 a.m. We are leaving from the High Street Ferry Landing. This will be a 2-hour tour. And you can park in our parking lot as you would typically do and walk down to High Street. We would recommend dressing comfortably. September, hopefully it's a little bit cooler, and obviously wearing appropriate footwear for the boat. In the event that we have inclement weather, we are looking at October 10th, I think, as a potential rain date for the tour. We will have a narrated tour, so we'll have a number of individuals who will help with kind of guiding the tour. And it will run to Councilman Hugel's point question earlier. We'll go down to the Chesapeake line on Elizabeth River. So we will see, Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Norfolk waterfront from the southern ends of the Elizabeth River to towards Virginia International Gateway, the harbor. So we'll take a 2-hour, pretty intensive waterfront visit, stopping along the way to discuss key sites.
How big a boat is Mariner for?
There's a picture of it on the screen here.
Okay.
Do you know how many it can accommodate?
Only 20.
20. So it's going to be size enough to accommodate commissioners or council liaisons, staff, and then I do believe we will have a few members of the press potentially joining us as well for the tour.
It's about the size of the SS Minnow and really planned for a 2-hour tour. Hopefully ours is more successful.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
Was it 3 hours?
Yeah, I think you're right.
If you dress like Gilligan, I'll just like the skipper.
We would just ask that for those who are able to and planning to join us, if you just please RSVP by September 5th, if you could email Cherie and just let her know that you will be attending so we could go ahead and mark you down as.
Will we be able to send that out to the commissioners that are not in attendance?
Yes,
We send out with the request for the
Absolutely.
RSVP by the 5th.
We will send in fact, I think Ms. Tracy's already been working on that, and we will be sending a formal invite out.
Thank you. Okay, anything else for the good of the meeting? Hearing none, we'll see you on the water on September 26th. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.